Hello everyone, welcome to Vegan Sweet Addiction. I'm Valentine, a vegan French pastry chef. Today we're gonna make a famous Italian dessert, tiramisu. In Italian, tiramisu means pick me up or cheer me up, and I think it makes perfect sense for such a decadent and rich dessert. What's so great about a tiramisu, other than the fact that it's delicious, is that if you're using store-bought Ladyfingers, you don't even need to use an oven. So if you don't have an oven, you can still make an amazing tiramisu. I've put in a lot of thought and time into this recipe to make it as authentic, easy and delicious as possible for you. You can skip this part and go straight to the recipe, but I will highly recommend you stay on, because it's gonna help you to understand the process. There are three components or different layers to a tiramisu. The first layer is gonna be the Ladyfingers or savoiardis, dipped into some coffee syrup. Sometimes with alcohol, I'm gonna use amaretti. You can make the Ladyfingers from scratch, I will show you how, or you can buy store-bought one if you can find vegan Ladyfingers in your area. The second layer is gonna be the mascarpone based cream. If you can find vegan mascarpone in your area, you can use that, but if you can't, you can use my recipe. It's gonna be on my website. The last layer is gonna be the cacao powder. I'm going to give you the gram and milliliter for today's recipe, but if you don't have a scale, we have the recipe in cups down below. Let's dive right in. We're gonna start first by preparing the Ladyfingers. We will preheat the oven at 150 Celsius and line 2 baking trays with greaseproof paper. Alternatively, if you have a Ladyfingers mold, you can use that instead. We're going to combine our dry ingredients. I don't often use a sieve in baking because I don't think it's necessary, but for this recipe I find it quite useful. It's gonna help you get rid of any lumps of baking powder or flour and mix evenly your dry ingredients. Please don't skip this part. 100 grams of all-purpose flour, 25 grams of cornstarch, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Sieve together your flour, cornstarch and baking powder. I'm then gonna whisk the aquafaba. Aquafaba is the water from cooked chickpeas. I usually reduce my aquafaba, but for this recipe, I don't find it useful. Aquafaba is gonna work like whip egg whites in this recipe and make it light and fluffy. 140 grams of aquafaba, 1 pinch of salt, 85 grams of castor sugar, 40 grams of neutral oil. The key to a great aquafaba meringue is to use a stand or hand mixer with a spotlessly clean bowl. You can even rub a wedge of lemon around the bowl and over the whisk attachment, because the acidity dissolves any small greasy particle, which will stop the aquafaba reaching its full potential. You're then going to start whisking your aquafaba and your salt together until it's light and fluffy, about 3 to 5 minutes. Then add your sugar 1 tablespoon at a time, gradually. When it's glossy, add the oil and whisk for 1 more minute. Once we've got a glossy and fluffy meringue, we're gonna fold in our flour. Fold it gently, but don't stress about it, it's not gonna make a big difference. Remove the bowl from the stand mixer and fold in the flour mixture until it's just combined and no lumps remain. Transfer the batter to a piping bag with a round nozzle and pipe the mixture into the silicone Ladyfinger molds. This recipe makes around 20 to 25 Ladyfingers, and I would advise splitting them between 2 separate baking trays. Before baking, dust the top of the biscuit with icing sugar. Place in the oven for 10 to 20 minutes. You can remove from the oven and leave it to cool on a wired rack. We will prepare the coffee syrup. In a bowl, we are gonna mix our hot espresso, sugar and amaretto. (200 milliliters of espresso or very strong coffee), 75 grams of caster sugar. Whisk together the hot espresso and the caster sugar until the sugar is dissolved. 40 grams of amaretto. To make the cream layer, you're gonna whip the whipped cream. You can use my recipe or a store-bought one. Transfer it to the bowl of a stand mixer. Or alternatively, if you want to whisk it by hand or with a hand mixer, you can transfer it in a large bowl. 115 grams of whipped cream, starting at a low speed and working my way up to high speed. I'm gonna whip until I reach a thick texture. Whisk the mascarpone cheese, the vegan butter and the cacao butter. 90 grams of vegan butter, 30 grams of cacao butter. In a bowl, I'm gonna melt together the vegan butter and the cacao butter until they're hot. 200 grams of vegan mascarpone cheese, 80 grams of vegan yogurt, 30 grams of icing sugar. Whisk the mascarpone cheese, the vegan butter and the cacao butter until it's smooth. Then add your yogurt, but at this stage don't overmix or the cream could separate. If your cream separates, you can always mix it in a high-speed blender. It should do the trick. Incorporate gently your whipped cream. One by one, dip each ladyfinger in the coffee mixture, flip and dip again, before placing in a row on the bottom of a deep dish. I'm gonna pour my tiramisu cream into a piping bag with a round nozzle because I want to make my tiramisu extra fancy, but it's not mandatory. Pipe your cream on top or use a palette knife or spatula to flatten off the surface. Place it in the fridge for at least 4 hours, but ideally overnight. Once ready to serve, you're gonna dust your tiramisu with cacao powder. So now I think it's time to try this tiramisu. I feel like going back to childhood and eating some tiramisu with my family. So, what do you think of this tiramisu?
I love the biscuit here. It's really tasty. And I think the cream is really creamy and fluffy. It's really cool.
And a little tangy like mascarpone cream should be. So like always, if you liked this recipe and if you recreate it at home, don't forget to tag me and comment down below. I would like to have your feedbacks. If you want the printable recipe, it's gonna be down below, so as everything I used to create this recipe. Bye!
Cheers!